Welcome to episode 648 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by the digitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. And we are live.
We are live. It's been a really long time since we've done that. And we've already got a bunch of people in the chat, despite the fact that we surprised you. I guess that means that you've been taking our advice and subscribing to us on Twitch, so the Twitch notifies you as soon as it happens, and you can scramble to your device and watch us live. We appreciate it. That also means that this should be a YouTube video. So if you're not watching this on YouTube now, you can head on over to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe to the video there too. So we also have listener feedback this week. We've got it all this week, Richard. Listener feedback, a live show, YouTube, stories in all three segments, stuff that's going on in our entertainment centers. This is a full episode, so maybe I should stop rambling and get on with the listener feedback. If you want to do that, there's a few ways you can do that. You can email us entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. We've got one of those to read, and you can leave comments on the website and the YouTube post. And I actually want to call out a couple of YouTube comments first. First, in Richard's rant last week about the new Sonos app. Well, there were a few comments there. Pretty much everybody agreeing with Richard. No one's happy with the new YouTube app. And then one commenter suggesting that maybe it came out feeling rushed because Sonos needed to release the app to meet an investor deadline. I hope that's not the case. Like, that's not how software development should go.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it not how it should go, I have a hard time, by the way, Sonos investor, believing that investors care about the release date of a software update. I just don't think it's that significant a deal. Now, they've been talking about it for a while as if it were a big deal, but, so.
And it was a big deal, just not the kind of big deal that they wanted.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, we also got email from Rob, and when I first saw it, I thought, this is long, we're going to need to summarize it. But he's got a lot of really good points, so I'm just going to read the whole thing for you. He says, "Evening, gents. Hope all is well with you both. I just finished watching the Fallout TV series, and man, does it live up to the hype. They've managed to capture the very soul of the game, from the dark humor, to the gratuitous violence, to joking about side quests getting in the way of the main mission. After seeing so many adaptations lately with varying levels of success, it's got me thinking that if TV writers and showrunners would just stick to the source material, maybe they'd be better off. These properties were optioned for a reason. If they were better writers than the original authors, perhaps someone would be adapting their work instead of the other way around. Halo had a severe shift in tone from the game and turned Master Chief into some emo, mopey grunt that's dragged along instead of forging his own destiny while dropping cool one-liners. Despite it being called The Witcher, the TV series made Geralt more of a side character than the main one. The Wheel of Time is a complete train wreck and is also severely downplays the central character to uplift other characters, despite the original series being very progressive and having gender balance being a central theme throughout. It cuts the entire integral arcs wholesale while adding in new, poorly thought out material and can't even manage to stay internally consistent with the rules it established. Woof. On the flip side, when Game of Thrones had the books to reference, it became a cultural phenomenon. And we all know what happened when they ventured out into unwritten waters. The Last of Us is almost scene for scene, line for line from the game, and they need a wheelbarrow to carry all the accolades they're getting. I just wish these showrunners and writers would understand why fans were actually drawn to these series and not use adaptations to push a narrative or tell stories they couldn't otherwise sell themselves in the guise of a beloved property. Am I wrong here? What are some adaptations that you think were done well and done poorly? Love the show, guys. Richard, I've been reading for a while. What are your first thoughts?
Well, first of all, love all of this feedback. And it's rare that I don't find much to edit in a massive amount of feedback that we get. Very well thought out, very well expressed here. I agree with this, although as a non-gamer, I don't know that I'm the best person to have an opinion on this. But what I do know is that shows like The Last of Us and Game of Thrones, when they followed the material, were really, really good. And it's very likely that this is the issue, that you have showrunners that are like, oh, I want to do my own creative spin on this thing. And it's just going to be in the world of, and that's going to be enough. And obviously, we know what the track record is of both movies and TV shows that are based on games. So,
well, I don't think he's just talking about games. Almost every example here he gave was games. But Wheel of Time, I don't think is a game. That's more of a book
Game of Thrones,
and Game of Thrones, right? The one that came to mind for me, and I pretty much completely agree with Rob on this, although I haven't watched or played some of the things that he references. The one that I guess I'd like your opinion on, Richard, is what about the Amazon spinoff for The Lord of the Rings? I think it was called Rings of Power. What did you think of that one?
I did like it. It didn't do well. They haven't really talked about whether there's going to be the rest of that. They had originally talked about multiple seasons of that, and we don't even know now if they're really going to come out with a second season or not. So it obviously didn't get the eyeballs that they were expecting. I liked it because I took it for what it was. I knew it was an official story. It was not an official story. And so for that, I found it interesting.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I did end up really enjoying that series, would love to see more of it, but it's not there. I also find his argument a little bit funny in that Fallout was the first thing that spawned this, because as I talked about, like while the show does a really good job of mimicking so many of the traits of the games, it does a much better job of storytelling than the games. Whereas, like you said with The Last of Us, it is the game as a TV show. The story, everything about it. And that worked really well because The Last of Us is great in all of those aspects. So,
but would that even be possible with Fallout? I thought Fallout was an open world.
Right. And it wouldn't really be possible with Fallout. I mean, you could potentially pick and choose some side quests that you might want to include into the show, but yeah, I don't think it would work as well. I mean, the open world aspect of Fallout is important in that it does allow people to play it in many, many, many different ways, and a lot of people really like that. But if you're really just going for a really good main quest, it's not that. It hasn't been that in a while. All right, well, thank you to Rob for writing in. The rest of our contact information will be at the end of the show, or just head on over to www.thedigitalmediazone.com to leave some comments or find all of our contact information there. And with that, let's jump into the news. We're going to start with video like usual. A couple of quick-ish ones, I think. So first one, we've been talking a little bit about a streaming service that's supposed to happen sometime later this year, that is supposed to be like the mega streaming service for sports fans. And that's how we've been talking about it, because it didn't have a name. And now it's got a name. It's going to be called Venu Sports. But, spelling things normally makes it hard to like register trademarks and register domain names. So it's VENU Sports. Of course, this service is being built by ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers. And for some of those, you might be thinking, all right, I know ESPN does sports. What else does this actually include? What am I going to be able to watch on this? Well, so ESPN also owns ABC. Fox has Fox and Fox Sports. TNT is under the Warner Brothers umbrella. So is TBS. So like ABC, ESPN, they have tons of college football, some ABC doesn't have any pro football. Or do they have Sunday night? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Fox has a lot of college football, college basketball. TNT and TBS have hockey and NBA. There's a lot here. There are a couple of partners who are not joining into this, though. Paramount and NBC. So that would be Paramount and Peacock, which would mean you're for sure going to be missing out on some NFL content that would be in the CBS/Paramount umbrella. And with Peacock, depending on when the service is even going to launch, you'll be missing out on the Olympics. But I don't know, everything that I've heard made me think that this service won't be launching until the fall. The Olympics are in June, right?
Late June, I think.
Yeah, that's what I think. So, but also, as we've mentioned before, Peacock has some, IndyCar and some other motorsports things too. So, and I think wrestling, maybe, I don't remember. So it's not going to be everything, but it's going to be almost everything. So we know a lot of what's going to be on there, or at least we can guess about a lot of what's going to be on there. We now know the name. The biggest thing we don't know, still, the price. So we'll be very curious to see where Venu Sports lands in all of those areas. And as soon as we know, we'll make sure you know. So let's move on to the other story in the video news this week. And that's another interesting streaming bundle. And this one's interesting for a couple of reasons. The first one is the price, and the second one is who's doing it. So this is a bundle from Comcast, and they're calling this the Stream Saver Bundle. And what it does is it allows Comcast customers to get Netflix, Apple TV, and Peacock bundled together for $15 a month. And your first reaction is probably, whoa, $15 a month? That's super cheap for those three services. I pay $1 million a month for those three services.
Okay.
Not quite, but it can feel like it. Part of the reason for that is you're getting the bare bones versions of these services. So for the Netflix one, it is Netflix Basic. That is the ad-supported option that is regularly $7 a month. For Peacock, it's Peacock Premium, which sounds like the really fancy one, but it's not. It's actually the basic version that also includes ads, which is regularly $8 a month. And then Apple TV Plus, there's only one version. They keep it simple over there. And that is $10 a month. So you're still saving a bunch of money. Like you could look at this as paying for Netflix and Peacock and getting Apple TV Plus for free because you're saving $10 a month.
Yep. That's a big, big savings. That's a 40% savings. We mentioned this last week as a footnote to our discussion about another bundle of services. And we were debating whether Disney and Max and Hulu together, those were the three, right?
Yes.
So whether those together would give a decent discount. All right, your move, Disney.
Yeah, no kidding. For $15 to get all three of these, like that's better than the Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus bundle.
Yep.
So yeah, there's no way it's going to be this cheap. It can't possibly be this cheap because there aren't super basic versions that would allow them to do that. Like I think the cheapest Max offering is $10 a month.
Yeah, I don't even is it 10 or is it 15 now? I don't remember, but I think last week I predicted that they would probably take $10 off of the combined price. So we'll see where it ends up coming in.
Yeah. I think you wanted it under 25 a month, and the combined price would have been 37. So it's a little bit more than that. But
yeah. I think it needs to be, I think it needs to be around a $25 price point.
Yeah.
But this is a good deal. This is a good deal. Even though it's the ad-free deal, I still think that if you're interested in these and you want to check them out, then I don't know how you beat this unless you can't stand the ads.
Right. Now, the other interesting aspect of this is who it's being provided by and for who can subscribe to it. This is from Comcast. And so if you're thinking, wait, so it's a streaming bundle on top of my cable subscription? Well, yes, it can be. But if you're just a Comcast broadband customer, if all you've got is internet through Comcast, you can do this also. If you don't have Comcast, tough. You don't have an option here. But what is it, like half the country has Comcast? It's probably not actually half, but they are the number one provider of internet and cable, I believe.
Yeah, and lesser known service, they also offer mobile, like many of these providers do. And as I understand it, I think this is also available to mobile subscribers.
That's cool. Their mobile service is cheap too. So, maybe it's not so bad to be a Comcast customer anymore. It used to kind of be. Now, maybe not so much.
I'm not willing to go that far.
Not an option for me. So I guess I don't have a horse in that race.
Yeah.
All right, Richard, you were so excited to talk about a Sonos app last week. How about some hardware?
Yeah, they've come out with some hardware. And I know there's some folks excited about this, but I have a really hard time getting excited about this. So long anticipated that Sonos would eventually come out with headphones. And I don't know if they actually confirmed that they were going to be coming out with headphones at any point prior to today, but all signs over the last year have been pointing to them actually doing this. I don't quite get the purpose of Sonos headphones. And I know I've talked about this before on different shows, but they've announced that they are now available for pre-order. So they are announcing the Sonos Ace headphones for just under $450, available in black or white, combination of plastic and metal, and the resulting combination of materials makes them less weighty, about 2 ounces lighter than their Apple equivalents. The Apple AirPods Max, I think, is the name of them. And I'm going to use that comparison a lot because that's how many journalists and many people I've talked to are looking at these, that these are the high-end offering that kind of plays in that same space.
Yeah, I think it is the right comparison. They're big over-the-ear headphones with a big, band that goes over your head. They're wireless. They're a premium price. I think it is the right device to compare them to.
Yeah, I think so too. And including that pricing in the comparison, they're also $100 cheaper than Apple's premium devices. So that's a plus for them. One thing that I think they've done right is that they're using physical buttons for the features on these headphones. And I always complain about virtual buttons on headphones. I think it doesn't make any sense. AirPods, earpods, stuff like that, I think that's a little bit different. But when you have headphones, you don't have to remember what side is what function. And you have all these different things that you can do, like pairing and volume and playback and noise cancellation. And in the case of these devices, they also have a TV swap or a content button that we'll talk about a little bit more. But these are all physical buttons. And it's Sonos, so they've done a good job of designing it so that they don't look hideous, right? They're nicely designed into the ear cases of these headphones. Just in general, I think they look great. They're kind of retro looking. You can tell that there's metal on them. The white ones have chrome metal, and the black ones keep the metal black. I think they're really cool looking. And I mentioned this content button. So Sonos, what are you going to use Sonos headphones for? Well, Sonos is taking a really big bet here because their number one use case, their killer app for this thing is watching TV with your headphones on. And they've built this around the idea that you're going to sit down at your TV and you already have, and this is important, so listen carefully, an existing Sonos soundbar on your television. And if you have that existing Sonos soundbar on your television, then with this content button, when you sit down, you can just tap it and enable the TV swap, which takes the sound from the soundbar and puts it in your headphones. And then you can swap it back if you want to at any point in time. So seamless. And from the reviewers that have tried this out, they say it's absolutely seamless. It's really well executed. Currently, this only works on the Arc, the most expensive soundbar that you can buy from Sonos. It will, in the future, also work with the Beam and I don't know what the other one's called anymore, but
The Ray.
Okay. So this will work with the other soundbars that they have for TVs, but this currently only works with that. You have to have a soundbar for this capability to work. It's going to offer virtual surround sound with head tracking. That's great. It's going to, let's stop there. Okay. So it's going to do virtual surround. It's going to convert whatever. It even does that kind of true tuning thing, but it's specially designed for the headphones to make the headphones sound like you're in the room you're in. So it doesn't completely take you away from the feel that you would have in the space that you're sitting in, which is kind of clever. I think that's a cool way of doing that. All of that works off of your phone. Oh, by the way, did I mention that you have to have a Sonos soundbar to make this work? You also have to have an iOS device to make this work, because these things with the TV don't work on Android yet.
Is that a yet? Because one of the things that I noticed in the article that we're going to link to here is that there's also lossless audio over Bluetooth if you have a phone powered by a compatible Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, which is not an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some features that only work for certain Android phones and some features that only work for iPhones.
Apparently so.
What?
I mean, it couldn't be simpler, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to take them for the word that this will eventually be available on Android. We'll see if that happens or not. I don't know about the other. It sounds like the other is a hardware issue, and you may not be able to get around that unless they come up with what they would probably think of as a degraded service that would provide similar capabilities, but wouldn't really be as good as the hardware-driven solution. So who knows? Now, all right. What are some of the specs? Well, I mentioned they're lighter than the AirPods Max. They get also more time than you get on a charge with the AirPods Max, 10 hours more. So expect 30 hours using active noise canceling on one charge, which is really good.
It is.
And you can order them now. If all of this sounds appealing to you, they ship on June 5th. What didn't we talk about? Oh, right. We didn't talk about whether you could just sit down with your headphones on and open up your app and start listening to music from Sonos. Yeah, no, you can't do that.
What?
That's not what these are designed for. They're Bluetooth headphones. You can use Bluetooth and listen to Bluetooth stuff with them if you want to.
Do you think that that's actually intentional because that's kind of weird? Like most people are like, because you and I have been saying for years that Sonos headphones don't make any sense because
Right.
why wouldn't you just use Bluetooth headphones? Is that why, or is this just like yet another feature eventually coming to the Sonos app?
Maybe it's coming eventually. I am kind of coming around to the argument that yes, but Sonos is a service aggregator, and that's a good thing. And why not be able to use that service aggregator as your source for these headphones? That would be really cool. Yeah, I agree. That would be cool if you want headphones from Sonos. But yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time, as you can probably obviously tell, getting excited about these. But I know that some people are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Like the idea of if you're already a Sonos household and you really want a really easy way to switch audio from your soundbar to headphones, like I get that that's a really cool use case that some people want.
Yep.
And then I think these are amazing for you. Probably will feel like a magical experience. For anything else, I don't quite get it. I also would love to know, like, that we have a lot of listeners who are Sonos users. How many of you are actually using the Sonos aggregation type features that Richard is talking about, where you've got playlist and music from multiple different services that you're combining into one playlist or whatever? How many of you are actually doing that?
Oh, I am.
Really?
Yeah.
For what?
What do you mean for what?
Like, what are you what different services are you combining?
So I have multiple services tied into it. I have Amazon and I have my Plex server, which is all my local stuff, which still doesn't really work properly in the new app. And I have my Apple Music and Spotify. So all those things are tied together in there. And I can search across all of that.
Wait, you have Amazon Music and Spotify and Apple Music?
Now remember, Spotify and Amazon are just things that you get, like Spotify free, and Amazon comes with Prime. I don't have the extra paid version. So I can still tie it in and I can still listen to stuff.
But do you?
And I enjoy doing that.
Like,
I do.
So you're paying for Apple Music though? Like Apple Music is your primary music thing?
Yeah.
So what do you even use Amazon and Spotify for?
Usually playlists. Like there are some playlists on Amazon that I really like. So I have a couple of those bookmarked in Sonos. Actually, I have them set up as Sonos favorites. I also have Sonos playlists that combine, and Christmas is the perfect example of this. Playlists of music that combine stuff that I like on my music service, like on Apple, and stuff that's only available on my server through Plex.
Okay.
So anyway, that was a long way of saying, yes, I do that. And yes, I agree. It would be interesting to hear if any of you do too. I could be a solo use case here.
I doubt that you are. Like that Sonos has spent a lot of time working on this music aggregation functionality. So you couldn't be the only one. But I feel like most people pick a service and then they stick with it and they don't use anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Now, this is not the only Sonos hardware news. There's more news. They have a new version of the Sonos Roam called the Sonos Roam 2. And this is not an upgrade. This is the same device with the same capabilities and the same form factor. I think it's even in the same colors. I'm not entirely sure about that.
Remind us what the Roam is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They have so many. Sonos has
Right.
so many different devices now.
Yeah. So the Roam is the very small, like beach speaker. It's the portable Bluetooth speaker that they have.
And it's their smallest one, right? Because they have
And
the
it's their
Move
smallest
2.
one. Yes. This is different than the Move. The Move is a heavier, more expensive version that you might take out onto your deck. This is one that you throw in your backpack and take with you to the beach.
Okay.
And it's a good speaker. I like it. I have it. This is not an upgrade. This is a hardware fix. This device fixes a problem that customers have complained about since the beginning, which is how the one button on this thing works. You have one physical button to power it, to pair it, to turn on and off Bluetooth, to put it in sleep mode. All of these things happen with one button. Guess what? No one could figure out. So they have fixed that. It was also not possible to pair this in Bluetooth without first setting it up with your home system. You had to set it up over Wi-Fi before you could even use it as a Bluetooth speaker, which is kind of ludicrous. Oh, by the way, this is a Bluetooth device that does work with your Sonos speakers and your Sonos service. So that's kind of crazy, unlike the headphones we just talked about. So anyway, you can order this now if you want one of these and you never bought it before. If you're holding out because you heard about all the bad stuff, if you already have one, I don't know that a fixed button is worth another $179, but it's available in white, black, army, greenish, orangish, and bluish. And the good news is the price didn't go up, because that's usually Sonos's move when they come out with a new version of something.
Right. Right. So are you buying either of these?
Oh, no. Not at all.
So hating the button situation on the current one isn't enough to get you to replace it?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll just curse at it every time I use it.
Okay. And what are your go-to headphones at the moment?
My go-to headphones for daily use are just AirPods Pro, and my go-to headphones for airplane use are Bose Quiet Comfort 3s, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm kind of amazed that talking about some new Sonos devices and Richard hasn't pre-ordered any of them.
Yeah, no interest whatsoever.
Okay. Wow. Dark days for Sonos.
That might be a good title.
It might be. It might be. All right, Richard, let's get into some gaming news. And surprisingly, this first story, it's actually about Macs. Like, not Macs like HBO Macs, like Macintosh computers, which no one calls them that anymore. Apple Mac Books and Mac Pros and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because Ubisoft announced a new mainline Assassin's Creed game coming out this fall, Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's the one people have been waiting for years. It's finally Assassin's Creed in Japan. None of that's super duper relevant here. What's interesting, what I find extra interesting about this is that it will launch day one on Xbox, PlayStation 5, PC, and Mac for M1 and up based Macs. And there aren't many games that have done that yet. This is a full retail AAA $70 game launching day one on Apple Silicon computers. Not if you're going out and buying an M4 equipped iPad Pro, I don't think it's going to run on that.
No.
But it will run on your MacBook Pro, maybe your MacBook Air. And I'm really curious to see how well that works, what the limitations are, what the quality settings are, the frame rates, all of that. because, man, these M series Macs are really impressive in so many ways. And if this is going to become the trend, then that could be huge for people who love gaming on a computer type device, but really just prefer Macs. And if you want a nice laptop, like, it's hard to find a better laptop than a MacBook. They're like, especially these M series based Macs, whether it's the Air or the Pro, they're really good, especially in terms of battery life and performance and all of that. So if they're going to become full on gaming laptops, that could be huge for what we've just always called PC gaming.
Right.
But PC gaming implies Windows, and that's not the situation here. So we're going to have to wait a while because the game doesn't come out until November 30th. But I'm very curious to see what this is going to be like. The last big name title that launched on Mac was a Resident Evil remake, and it's a modern-ish game, but it's still a remake. So I don't think it's maybe the greatest determining factor for how good gaming can be on a Mac, but this, this will be a benchmark for sure. So very curious to see what that looks like come the end of November. All right, another sort of quick one, Xbox Cloud Gaming. We talked about this a couple of months ago. They had rolled out a trial of keyboard and mouse support for cloud gaming from PCs. So if you're cloud streaming games from the service, you could actually use a keyboard and mouse when you're doing it on a computer. It wouldn't require you to use a game controller. Well, that feature is out of trial now. You can do that now from a computer web browser. You've got to be using Chrome or Edge. And this will work on 26 games that are currently available. They will be adding support to more games as it rolls out. And then they will also later this month be updating the Windows PC app to support the same sort of functionality. So I think this will be a really welcome feature. If you're playing on a computer, you probably want, I mean, it depends on the game, but if you're playing on a computer, you probably want to be using a keyboard and mouse. And now you'll have that option or the option to switch between mouse and keyboard or a controller. All right. And last on the gaming front, keeping it in the Microsoft space again, Microsoft announcing a new accessibility-based controller from a company called BioWave. This new controller is called the Proteus. It's really interesting. So this controller, it's basically a bunch of magnetic cubes. Like, think of cubes that are, I don't know, a couple inches, 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches, probably, roughly. And on the different sides of the cubes, there are analog sticks, there are buttons, there are triggers, all of the things that you would have on an Xbox controller. But they're magnetic cubes that you can arrange in whatever way makes the most sense for you, so that if you've only got, maybe you only have really good use of one hand, or, lots of like practically unlimited scenarios here, you can arrange these in a way that actually works out for you. And the buttons are also remappable. So tons and tons and tons of possible configurations here. Microsoft has really leaned into making it a more accessible console for people for whom a traditional game controller just won't work. The only downside to this controller is the cost. It is a $300 controller. That stinks, but I have to imagine that some of that is these are, they're not going to sell nearly as many of these as they do traditional Xbox controllers. Obviously, right. It is a smaller market for this sort of thing. So, but but it's an important one. And anything we can be doing to expand who can be playing games, it's for the best. So I'm excited to see this new controller out in the public this fall.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that they announced this, but this is a third-party product, right? Because Microsoft already has its own adaptive controller, which is much less expensive.
Right. It's $100. Yeah.
Still really cool.
Yep. We can always use more options in this space. So really glad to see that. All right. Richard, what's going on in your entertainment center?
Not a ton. A lot of the same stuff that I was watching before: The Amazing Race, Discovery Season 5, Doctor Who, and many, many, many more YouTube videos about 3D printing. As I start to learn this new hobby I decided I needed to take on. So that's pretty much been it. I haven't started anything new. I haven't kept up with any of the side things because rather than watching another episode of Bob Newhart, I'm playing with the new printer. So I did get a lot further into the book that I've been listening to most recently, Rachel Maddow's prequel. Very, very good book. Talks about events in our history around World War II that look a lot like the political situation that we and other countries are kind of dealing with right now. So, interesting read. And that's it. That's it for me. So how about you, Josh?
Man, that's got to be like the shortest segment for you ever.
Yeah, well, I'm going to weigh in a little bit on yours if you talk about what I think you're going to talk about.
I don't know. You might not. Okay, so gaming, very little gaming happening. Very, very, very busy week. Just basically racing my car all weekend, like very little time for anything. So a little bit of NHL maybe. And we played Fortnite to, like, me and the guys that I regularly play with played Fortnite the one night that I was able to game. TV side, I might have watched more of The Wire last week, but I'm not even sure that I did that because now that it's warmer and sunnier out in the morning, been doing more running outside instead of on the treadmill. And then it's the NHL playoffs, so I've been watching a little bit of that. And then on the book side, today I finished Dune. Very good book. Like, the writing is so good. It's so good. And now, see, here's the problem. Now, Dune Part 2 is now on Max as of this week. Mm-hmm. I hope that means Dune Part 1 is still on Max. I hope. Be real jerky if they removed it. I kind of want to watch both of them, like rewatch Max or the first one and then watch the second one. But that is like 6 hours worth of movie watching in a short period of time.
It's not quite that bad, but yeah, you're getting close. You're definitely over 5 there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we watched Dune Part 1 just a little while ago because we knew that Dune Part 2 was coming out soon, and I did receive my disc for that. So I'm hoping to watch that over the holiday weekend.
Ultra HD Blu-rays look really good. But it also seems silly for me to go out and spend like $35 on that when I could just watch it for free on Max.
Right.
Yeah. But man, do Ultra HD Blu-rays look good? I probably won't. What was the thing you were thinking you were going to ask me about?
I didn't know if you were going to talk about any new hardware.
Oh, right. Yes. So if you are watching this on YouTube or the live show, I got one of these. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, which is like all of you, what I just held up was the new I'm never going to get the name of this thing right by memory. The Google TV Pro 4K, blah, the new Google TV streamer from on/Walmart. I just got it today. Barely had time to set this thing up before the podcast, but I did get it set up partly because it's got a really cool way of getting these things set up. So you plug it in, you turn it on, and it's like, hey, do you have the Google Home app? Of course I have the Google Home app. If you do, scan this QR code. It'll open a thing up in the Google Home app and basically set everything up for you. And that really makes setting things up a whole lot faster. And it had a short software update, of course. And it does give you a list of apps that you might want to pre-install. So I picked most of the ones that I would want to pre-install. Plex was not on that list. I had to install that one manually. But pretty much everything else that we regularly use was already in there. So got those all set up. I was really, really hoping that as it was importing all of my settings from other Android devices, that maybe it would automatically log me into all of those services. It did not. I had to log into Netflix and Disney Plus and Spotify and all of that stuff. Fortunately, most of those are really easy to, like, if you have those apps on your phone, then it's scan a QR code from your phone and it just does the rest.
Right.
Hulu is the worst of all of these. Hulu's like, nope, it's like it's 2013 again. Yep. Go to this web address, log in, type in the codes. Like, it is so archaic. Come on, Hulu. You can do better.
Well, at least doesn't Netflix actually still require you to type a password?
No.
Oh, they fixed that?
No, with the Netflix app on my phone, when I scanned the QR code, it opened the Netflix app on my phone and just automatically went,
okay,
yep, cool.
All right, good. Very good.
Yeah. So, initial impressions, the remote is like, it is not a premium remote by any stretch of the imagination. For those of you watching, here it is, although trying to display things on this video can be challenging. It's got a lot of the buttons that I would want. It's got a good home button. It's got a live TV button, which if you use the live TV stuff in Google TV, that might be helpful. It has a microphone button for doing voice activated search. It's got hardware buttons for YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus, and Paramount Plus. It has a profile button. I had forgotten that you can set up user profiles in Google TV. So that could be interesting. Might give that a try with my kids. Maybe they'll stop wrecking my YouTube algorithm on my account by watching YouTube on the TV. It has a power button. It has a star button at the other top right corner. And the star button you can program to either launch an app of your choice or be the button that controls your TV inputs. I am very interested in trying those things. So I set it up in my office tonight. It was not hooked up to my main TV, so I haven't really been able to try those things. But if HDMI CEC works correctly, then I might be able to just turn my TV and this device on with the power button, turn the TV and this device off with the power button. I'm not concerned at all. I'm sure the volume buttons will just work. That's not a hard thing. Everything does that. And I suspect the input button is going to work too. All of that sounds fantastic. And also, because this device is a Google speaker, maybe that doesn't really have much to do with it, but it is a Google speaker, so you could yell at this thing. We talked about that some last week. The other thing that I think is cool, it's not super novel, but it's a nice thing to have. This is a small remote. It would be very easy to lose it. There is Find My Remote functionality built into this thing. There is a button on the Google TV itself. You push that, and your remote starts making noise so that you can find it. I've never actually had a remote that does that, even though, I remember TVs nice TVs in the 90s had that functionality. I've never had a remote that does that, so I'm actually pretty excited about it. So Richard, do you have one of these?
I did order one. And I think you're underselling the remote. I have not set this up. I placed it under the television in my office, and I went to go plug it in and found out that all 3 of the plugs on my extension cord were in use. So that thwarted any further effort there. But yeah, I am actually really happy with the remote. Like, I just unboxing it and looking at the remote, I thought, okay, it's cheap, but not really much cheaper than the remote that comes with the Chromecast with Apple, or Chromecast with Apple TV, Chromecast with Google TV. And it has more buttons on it.
Right.
It has the buttons that you'd want. It has the buttons where you expect them to be. It actually has a button on it that looks like a microphone when you want to talk to it, if you choose to talk to it by pressing a button. It has up and down volume buttons on the left where you expect it to be. It has up and down channel buttons on the right for apps that use it where you expect them to be. This is such a well-designed remote. They did a way better job than Google, a way better job than Apple, a way better job than most television manufacturers at making a simple streamer remote.
You're right.
So,
like you're 100% right. I completely agree with you. It just feels a little bit cheap, but you're right. In
totally.
terms of the functionality and stuff, it's great. It's absolutely great.
So after all this, I hope it works well. But I hope to hook this up over the weekend and give it a try. And, if it's as good as the experiences on the Google TV, which I think most listeners know I use as my regular device at our rental property for us when we're there, then this is a major contender. Plus, there's your Google Assistant built in on the speaker right there. There's a physical button to turn the mic off if you don't want it listening to you and you don't want to use it that way. You don't have to. You can still just trigger voice with the voice button on the remote. So it's slick. I'm really impressed so far.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't mention that I also think is really nice about this device that I think kind of makes it feel more premium than most of the other devices we just talked about, including the Chromecast with Google TV. It's got an Ethernet port.
Right.
I don't want my streaming devices on Wi-Fi. I want the best possible connection I can get. And that's a wired Ethernet port.
Mine are now, unfortunately, because the way our rooms are configured. But I think that's a smart move.
Yeah. Yeah, because what does that add to the bill of materials? 35 cents?
Well, I would argue it's more complicated than that because you're having to adjust the hardware design to physically accommodate your jack. So there's cost to it, but I think it was a smart decision.
Yeah. So next week, you and I will have a lot more to talk about in terms of using this device. But so far, I'm very impressed. I'm very excited about this thing. And for any of you wondering, well, if you do like this, what happens to your Shield? Because Josh, isn't it also your Plex server and all of that sort of stuff? It is. Maybe that goes in my basement on the basement TV. Maybe it just sits here in my office connected to the TV and receiver in my office. Like, it can still be my Plex server. It doesn't have to be connected to my main TV to be my Plex server. So
yeah.
But I also wonder if this could be a Plex server. It's got a USB port on it. I could plug a hard drive into this thing too, I think.
Yeah, but I wonder what kind of hardware this has on it in terms of being able to keep up with that.
I don't think it would actually do well for that.
I mean, isn't one of the things that the NVIDIA Shield okay, I don't know how to complete that without sounding wrong, but Isn't one of the things it does is have hardware acceleration on it for the video transcription?
Transcoding, yeah.
Transcoding?
Almost definitely. Like the I haven't seen benchmarks between that processor and this one, but I'm sure that the Shield is a more powerful device.
Yeah. Still, really cool. Can't wait to test it out. And while I thought I was going to be away next week, I was premature in that concern. It's 2 weeks from now. So next week, let's compare notes.
Yay. One last thing to point out, and I think this is even more important for you, Richard. Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision support on this device too. Like this is not a cheap, crappy device that's stripped down of features. It's got everything we're looking for.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's enough talking about a device that we've barely actually gotten to use in reality. So that's going to do it for the show. If you want to get a hold of us, there's a lot of ways you can do that. I'm on Twitter at Josh Pollard. So is the website at DigiMediaZone. Richard is Richard Gunther on Mastodon. And Richard, you've got another show that you do. What's going on with Home On?
I do. It's in my editing queue right now. So as I mentioned, I recorded with Allison Sheridan last week. We had a great discussion, and I should expect to get that out of the holiday weekend.
Nice. Looking forward to that. And hey, we actually did the show live. We talk about doing the show live a lot. This time we did. Normally Tuesday nights around 8:30 p.m. At least that's what we say. Subscribe to us on Twitch. It'll notify you for sure when we're live. And we will try to do a better job of giving you some heads up on at least Twitter and maybe Richard over on Mastodon to give you a little bit of advance notice so that you can join us live in the chat. But that's going to do it for episode 648. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.